Welcome to Super Rant Season 1 Doomsday Preppers. Here we rewatch superhero movies to explore how they build towards bigger stories, starting with Avengers Doomsday and the MCU. Welcome to Super Rant. This is the podcast where we watch movies as they relate to other movies. We are starting with the MCU, and today we are talking about Thor: The Dark World and how it might connect to Avengers Doomsday at the end of this year. My name is Brian Erdman, and I am happy to be here.
My name's Kevin. I'm a lead writer for Screen Rant, covering all things superheroes, Star Wars, and all sorts of fun stuff.
Excellent. Well, first things first, if you haven't watched Thor: The Dark World, there will be spoilers in this conversation, so if you don't want that, please go watch it. But what year did the movie come out, Kevin?
2013. 13 years ago.
13 years ago. That's pretty wild. And I remember 13 years ago, this movie did not get a lot of praise. It didn't necessarily get any criticisms, but it just wasn't one of the most watched Avengers movies out there.
No, I mean, as far as MCU movies go, it's not super memorable by any means. That being said, I think I'm of the opinion that it has a better reputation now.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially after a movie like Thor: Love and Thunder, which, if you know, that movie receives a lot of criticism, and I would probably give it a lot of criticism as well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other Marvel movies that have come out recently that are not receiving a lot of praise. And so to look back and watch this movie, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not my least favorite Thor movie anymore. And there's a lot to there is a lot to enjoy. The problem is that it's just kind of basic in terms of its it's got a lot of the like classic problems that Marvel movies have, and it just kind of has a lot of them in the same movie, if that makes sense.
Sure. Looking at my ranking of Thor movies, though, I think I'm reevaluating where they fall. I mean, Thor Ragnarok is at the top, but in terms of like who Thor is as a character, I don't know if it's the most faithful. So I don't even know if I would call it like a Thor movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though Thor is the main character, like they do not get into a lot of the like classic Thor symbolism and vibe, and like it's all very different, which is good. Thor Ragnarok is a great movie, so it's still at the top of my list in terms of Thor movies. But then I think it's Thor: Dark World next, because I really enjoyed it. I think it's got a lot of really cool shots. I really like the villains, even though they are fairly two-dimensional. I think they're really cool. I like their vibe. And then I think I go Thor, the first one, and then Love and Thunder at the bottom.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, especially after rewatching, like, I hadn't rewatched Dark World since seeing Love and Thunder.
Right.
And it's just kind of surprising to me, like, yeah, there's good stuff in there. I wouldn't call it like, I mean, it's for sure not in my top 10. I wouldn't even put it in like my top 15, but like there's some really great moments, like specifically with Loki, that I really enjoy.
For sure.
I remember I kind of looked into like the behind the scenes, and as they were dealing with the script, they were reevaluating after how well Loki did in the Avengers. And they were like, our script needs more Loki. So during post-production, they actually asked Joss Whedon, who was doing Age of Ultron, they asked him to like punch up the Loki stuff. And you can really tell, like, I think Loki's your MVP in this movie.
I think you're right. I was just about to say, I think Loki is definitely, since Avengers, since Thor Dark World, he definitely finds more of a primary role within the MCU.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, the movie overall is pretty basic. Like, I feel like you can just kind of tell, like, I don't think many like on the actors and the production. Like there wasn't a lot of heart in this one,
It's
and
a
it might,
very
yeah,
two-dimensional movie.
yeah. I mean, it might be because I don't know if you know this, but originally Patty Jenkins, who ended up directing Wonder Woman, like she was the original director they had signed on, and then she left because of creative differences. So then they brought on Alan Taylor to direct, and he had done like some of the best episodes of like the first two seasons of Game of Thrones. So it kind of like made sense to like pivot in that way. Um, but yeah, I feel like you can just kind of tell that this one was maybe just like, let's call it a rush job, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a couple different aspects. I've got two or three main things that I want to focus on with our time here today. The
Sure.
first one is this movie, similar to Iron Man 3, is very affected by Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You get all the stuff with Loki and the punishment that he receives for his actions during Avengers. You get Thor, who, he's struggling with, oh man, the Earth really does need my protection. How do I live up to the expectations that I have here? As well as like the new calling that I found to be Earth's protector and to be with Jane and all of that. And just as you think about this current phase that we're in, what how does this compare to other movies of similar nature that deal with that post Avengers time frame?
Yeah, like what do I like in terms of like other Marvel movies that deal with the aftermath of like the bigger crossovers?
Well, no. So, like specifically with the aftermath of this first Avengers movie,
Mm-hmm.
there are just a couple other movies that deal with the aftermath. So, Iron Man 3 being one, and Winter Soldier being another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does this one deal with that aftermath in compared to the other ones? Like if you had
Oh,
to rank
yeah.
them, where would you
I
rank them?
mean, yeah, if I had to rank them, like, I mean, it's an interesting question because I feel like all three, like specifically we're talking Iron Man 3, Dark World, Winter Soldier, they all kind of deal with like different aspects, you know? So,
Sure.
like, I enjoy that Tony's dealing with his own kind of like personal traumas. Then you have, Dark World's dealing with like Loki and the consequences for him. And you also have like the consequences of like Thor and Jane. They didn't see each other for 2 years because the Bifrost was destroyed. So even in that respect, they're kind of dealing with like aftermath from the first Thor movie. And then she's like, "Oh, but I saw you in New York," you know. So like that I thought was pretty cool, and it's kind of that ongoing evolution of like Thor's character and really determining that like he's not quite ready to be king. I felt like that's kind of a good evolution is in the wake of Avengers. But I absolutely love Winter Soldier, and we'll talk about that soon. Of just Shield and like Nick Fury wanting to be more prepared for future threats, and all of the good Hydra stuff, like Captain America, really trying to fit in the present current era because when he came back, he kind of immediately gets thrown into Avengers. So I think if I had to rank it, I would say Winter Soldier, Dark World, Iron Man 3. As far as like which movies do the best job doing like covering the aftermath of Avengers.
See, okay, so I would maybe do Winter Soldier, Iron Man 3, Dark World,
Mm.
just because like Iron Man's struggle with his own like paranoia and anxiety that he receives from that battle, I think is really
Yeah, I mean
engaging and really
it's
interesting.
definitely good. I also really just enjoy like Loki grappling with the fact that he lost and how that's now he has to pay for that, whether it's in like a
Yeah,
cell or like all the stuff with Frigga, Thor, and Loki's mother. I think is really really good. I think that's one of the best parts of Dark World for sure.
sure.
I was curious, what are your thoughts on Malekith, the villain?
Yeah, like I mean, like I said before, he's a very flat, two-dimensional villain. His
Hundred
his
percent.
motives are kind of just like, yeah, I want to destroy everything and put everything into
It's
darkness. And
it's
it's like,
very
okay,
Doomsday Darkness, not much else.
yeah, it's like, oh, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
When there's so much else going on in the movie, I think every now and then it's okay for your villain to be like not that well fleshed out. But like vibe wise, I dig it. You know, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, so I like the dark elf thing.
Yeah, I
I
mean
like
visually they all look great.
I like the idea of like the cursed ones where they crush the whatever thing that they need to crush to become this big hulking thing
Yeah, like
that is in
berserkers.
constant
Yeah.
pain. Like I think that's really cool. I like their ships a lot, and so yeah, like their vibe is great. I know in the comics Malekith has that weird like one side of his face is blue and one side of his face is black, and that's just like part of his character. So I
Yeah.
like what they do in this movie where like Thor shoots him in the face with lightning and he gets kind of like that Two-Face vibe.
Yeah, like scars on
Um,
half his face. Yeah, I mean it's a really cool like
I think that's
visual
really
decision.
cool.
Mhm.
And so, I think I think he is a villain that makes sense for this film.
Yeah, I feel like Christopher Eccleston was a weird choice for casting. Then
I
again, I
mean,
know that
he
like
played that character well.
yeah, I mean again, not a lot to work with in my opinion like as
Yeah.
far as like depth. But like I know that like Marvel Studios originally they really wanted Mads Mikkelsen and they
Oh, for sure.
eventually got him for Doctor Strange.
Yep.
But like I don't know if what's his name Caecilius in Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
I don't know if he only has like marginally more depth than Malekith, but maybe that's just
Sure.
me. But
His whole thing was kind of just like, oh, I want to bring about darkness. It's
yeah,
kind of
but
understandable.
very similar. Yeah.
Something that I really like in this movie is they flesh out Asgard a whole bunch more. Like they show like the city streets and like the dungeons and just like walking around the different halls.
Oh
Like
yeah,
I
like
think that's really cool.
making Asgard feel lived in.
Yeah, like I think they
Yeah,
do a really good
that
job of
is
that. And
that's
maybe
a good
that's where
strength.
like
Yeah.
that Game of Thrones experience comes in from the
Hmm.
director. Like cuz like that's what I like a lot about this movie and that's what I think Thor movies are maybe missing is like okay, let's get back into like the actual like myth and story and legend of Asgard.
Where medieval meets cosmic.
Right. And maybe this one took that too seriously and maybe Thor Love and Thunder took that um too much tongue in cheek.
Mm.
And I think there needs to be a middle ground because I think Thor works best when there are moments he can laugh at himself, but
Yeah.
he is a serious character. In order to take a character who has the power and the level of presence that he has, I think you have to play him more serious.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you'll agree with me that I think the movies that strike that balance best is Infinity War and Endgame.
Well, yeah, and like even in Endgame, like they go a little bit silly with his whole thing, where
Oh, like
he's
his
let himself
grief and
go and
he's
all
yeah,
that.
because he
But
failed.
like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but near the end of the movie, when like he realizes that despite his grief, he's still worthy.
Yeah.
Like
And it all
despite
yeah.
being broken doesn't mean that you're not worthwhile as a
It's
person.
it
I
it
think
really
that's
comes
really
around.
impactful. I think that's really special,
Yeah.
and I was really looking forward to Thor 4 having moments where he was trying to figure that out, but then they blew through all of that in a montage.
Yeah.
And it's like that sucked,
Taika
man.
Waititi did not want to follow up on what he was given with a post Avengers Thor. He wanted to follow up on his Thor post
Right.
Ragnarok, and it just didn't. It's not the same Thor.
And
And what I
Endgame
love
left
about yeah,
him in such an engaging and intriguing spot that I really wanted to see that, and
100%.
that's not the case anymore.
No, it all got wrapped up
Anyways,
way too cleanly in 15 minutes. But what I love
yeah,
about the Endgame thing, and it's just this great redemptive arc, is that it heavily deals with the events of Dark World. Like he
right.
has that conversation with his mom, and it's like really, really good. And I
It's really
think
good.
like it's a big reason in my mind where it's like Dark World does not, it deserves way more credit today than it did then.
Yes, I think you're right, and I think they've
Yeah.
retroactively given it a lot more
Yeah,
purpose.
no, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
but this is definitely one of those movies where I think they had more intention with how it fit into the larger MCU as a whole because you've
Oh
got
yeah.
one of the first instances of an Infinity Stone.
Yep.
And
Yep. Where they kind of,
coming
yeah.
back, it made itself important to Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
Because in
Yep.
Endgame, the only way you were going to get, you know, the Reality Stone was by going back to this time period during Dark World. And so
Yeah,
I think that's
When
really
Jane had
interesting.
it. Yeah, no, absolutely.
But I've got, let's connect this to Doomsday.
Yep.
Something that I picked up on in this movie had to do with the convergence. And it's this idea that there are these different worlds that are coming together and their borders are blurring,
Yeah, the Nine Realms.
and physics and space and all of that is coming undone, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I
They're
thought
like,
that was a very interesting parallel to what is probably happening in Doomsday with incursions.
yeah, I feel like it's very similar because the whole idea is that you've got the Nine Realms aligning, and it's like their different gravities are mixing and matter, and like they're almost like it's almost like it's like a controlled, like almost incursion, like they're not crashing into
Yeah.
each other and destroying themselves, but they're getting pretty dang close.
So
Now,
my thought is, as we look ahead to Doomsday,
yeah,
and okay, is what is the incursions going to look like? I think we can kind of get an idea, because whereas this was a meeting of different planets in the same universe,
mm-hmm,
the incursions are going to be meeting of different universes.
yeah,
Similar kind
and
of
far more
concept, but on a
destructive.
larger scale, and without the unity and harmony that the convergence brings together.
Yeah, it'll be a lot more chaotic and dangerous, and
Apocalyptic and Doomsday.
yeah,
You know.
absolutely. And I like,
So
yeah, I
go
like
ahead.
the idea of one reality's heroes having to protect their own universe from another universe and its heroes. And I
Right.
think that's why Doomsday will kind of end up being like an Avengers versus X-Men movie. Like,
Well, yeah.
gosh,
And then
it's gonna be
Fantastic
crazy.
Four's in there somewhere too.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how it all like how these quote unquote like battle lines get drawn.
Yeah. And I just think that this movie is maybe a good maybe not, maybe blueprint isn't the right word, but maybe more like,
Little hint.
okay, if maybe it gives us a glimpse into what that could look like.
Yeah, yeah. Just even in kind of
Anyways,
like shared DNA, whatever you want to call it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think there's much more to talk about with Thor: The Dark World. It's a pretty cut and dry movie. Like you
Yeah,
said,
pretty.
it's
Yeah.
pretty basic. It's maybe one of those movies that they kind of just like, yeah, we got to get this one out there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on. Let's talk about news. What you got for us, Kevin?
I want to talk about Daredevil
Yeah, dude,
because it's awesome.
it's so good.
At the time of recording this, the fourth episode of Daredevil Born Again season 2 just released, and it's
Phenomenal.
got some of the craziest moments, craziest scenes, incredible characters, an insane cliffhanger. It's just awesome.
It
Um,
Daredevil has and will be my favorite show. Like the Netflix, phenomenal, and what they're doing with Born Again on Disney Plus is just continuing some
it's so good.
phenomenal. Wow, words are hard, people. Phenomenal acting and storytelling and
Yeah.
set design, production design, editing. This show is really just, it's great. It's a
Yeah,
treat.
the previous episode, episode 3, had one of the coolest, like, every once in a while they do these like one shot action scenes, and it was so dang good. And then it's like we get this new episode and it just tops it with just some really cool moments with like Bullseye and the Fisks, and there's just really cool stuff. So highly recommend.
It's highly
Definitely check
recommend.
that out.
Best thing that Disney Plus is doing right now.
It's
It's
well, actually, it's one of the best things that Disney
one of
Plus
the,
is doing right now, because
I
we
think
got
it
to
is the
talk
best
about.
thing,
I
but
don't care that
another
this
really
is.
good thing
I don't
is,
care that this is a superhero podcast. We're gonna talk about Maul just a little bit because the first 2 episodes of Maul Shadow Lord just came out this week as well, and my gosh,
so amazing,
I
so
cannot
great.
hype up Maul enough because oh my
And
gosh.
and Sam Witwer, who plays Maul on this show and has played Maul for all of the Clone Wars stuff that they've done and Rebels,
Yeah.
he has clearly had a lot of input on this show.
Oh, it's so good.
And some of the things that they do and some of the things that they're trying out are just clearly from his passion for the character.
Yeah.
I was looking at a video earlier where they were saying that they used some of Sam's screams as
I saw
lightsaber
that.
sounds.
It's crazy.
That's so cool.
That's
Like
wild.
what are they doing? That's awesome.
They're just
That's so
putting
great.
all this like extra spice on it, and I love it.
Oh, just great show, great time
Yeah.
for them to explore who
Can't
Maul
wait.
is and what his motives are. Like, because it takes place, 5 years after the Empire comes to power.
Just 1 year, I think.
Oh, okay, so even sooner.
Even sooner,
it's,
yeah.
It's Maul experiencing this universe that he knew was going to take place because his master was the Emperor, but then the Emperor betrayed him, and he had
so
his
good.
underworld going on, and his underworld betrayed him. So, just the things that he tries to do and be and pursue is just really interesting and really cool. Definitely check it out.
Cannot wait to see more.
If you're like, oh, I'm not going to watch it because it's an animated show, the animation in this show is incredible. Every single frame is a piece of art.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, anyways, back to superhero stuff. Last thing I wanted to touch on. Did you see the new Punisher trailer that came out today?
I did. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
again,
a week
Disney
after,
Plus is killing it right now, giving us top tier projects.
Yeah. So a week after the season finale of Daredevil Born Again season 2, they're going to go right into a Disney Plus special. It's going to be an hour long, and it's going to be Punisher One Last Kill. Because John Bernthal's Punisher was in the first season of Born Again, but he hasn't been in this season because of this special that he's like written, and he's like an executive producer on this special. And then he's also appearing in Spider-Man Brand New Day.
Right.
Which is just like the craziest thing ever. But this special looks insane.
Yeah, dude.
Oh my gosh. It looks like it's going to be nuts.
It looks so cool.
Yeah.
And if you watch the Punisher show when it was on Netflix, there's definitely some similar vibes, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Some things that are kind of like, oh, this looks like they're maybe taking inspiration from that, but they're clearly taking it in its own direction, and they're doing its own thing, and they're exploring Punisher in, how does he connect in this time and place, and what are the things that he's going through now. I just think it's really cool.
Yeah, that final shot of the trailer, did you see the restaurant behind him?
Yeah.
Nucci's? Yeah, like Ma Nucci was like a big crime boss that Punisher fights in the comics. It's awesome.
Very cool.
But yeah. Anyways, I think that's all I got, all we kind of have time for. So why don't we go ahead and wrap this one up?
Let's wrap it up. Next week, we are watching Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which is my all-time favorite Marvel movie.
It's always going to be my top 5.
So I'm sure that'll be a longer episode because we'll just talk until we can't anymore.
Yep, probably.
But yeah, watch that one before next week's episode. And as always, thank you for watching.
Catch you later.
Thank you for listening to Super Rant Season 1 Doomsday Preppers. Look out for our following episode next Friday. And remember to watch the upcoming movie before listening. You can find a link to our watch schedule on our YouTube page.